Eskom will be presenting the state of its power system later today. This is the second such update this year. And, well, let me say this week, perhaps, this is during the first update of January. It was revealed that the country had 57 days of load shedding in 2021, the second highest on the record. Now, some experts believe that we could be headed for up to 100 days of blackouts. Our business reporter, Kopano Gumbi, joining us now in studio to talk us through some of what we might expect from the Eskom executives. Kopano, good morning to you. Haven't seen you in this show for a very long time, and that's probably why I'm tripping on my words when I see that intro that Eskom is briefing for the second time. The point is that they have been on TV for longer than they should, explaining the same thing, why we have power cuts. And I suspect complicating matters here is the departure of Philip Dugashe, who heads the generation system. Firstly, how does that complicate matters for Eskom? This is someone with years of experience. If I'm not mincing my memory here, I think it's over 20 years of experience.
26 years.
26 years. There we go. He leaves. What now?
And he leaves at quite a critical time in Eskom's, trajectory as they're trying to rebuild a system that is really quite dilapidated, fully. And I think it is going to cause a hole in the generation business at Eskom, which is the one that we have the biggest crisis at. Yeah. They're in the most amount of debt. They are responsible for generating our power. It's their coal-fired stations that are in crisis and have not been maintained for all of these years that has led us to all these many years of load shedding. Yeah. And I think that's part of what we're going to hear about today, the update from Eskom telling us where are we in the system, how far are we in terms of maintaining and bringing back up all of those coal power stations, and what next for our country.
You are a business reporter in this organization that tells viewers just how knowledgeable you are on the business side of things. It was this very same Eskom, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, which led the country in part toward its technical recession, and I think that would have been the first quarter of 2021. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. My memory may be failing me here, but I know for a fact that Eskom was a contributor, a big contributor at that.
It absolutely is. Eskom is always a big contributor to the instability in our economy, and that's because the need for power for any kind of business and society to function is essential. It's almost like a fundamental of our business and our operations and our economy.
And that's why you will constantly hear politicians who are supposed to be thinking up solutions through policy. They'll tell us, Eskom is too big, it can't be allowed to fail. What are you doing about it?
Absolutely, and it really cannot be allowed to fail. Well, you imagine a South Africa that's just gone dark. What would happen to all of the businesses, to schools, hospitals, clinics, everything, not just our homes and our operations? It is such a fundamental part of how we live and how we operate that it cannot afford to fail. And so it's 380-odd billion rand that's causing quite significant headache for our government, the debt that the Eskom entire utility is under. All of that is very important, and we need to see resolutions, and that is where government can play a much bigger role in unlocking the opportunities available for Eskom if they decided how they want to handle that debt.
Well, the one question I'm not going to trick you about, but it is stuff that I have been reading around Eskom, because anything that has to do with what could save this institution, or perhaps not save it, perhaps is the word, but get it working properly again, and basically just give us power. The understanding is that the Minister of Finance has been speaking with his counterparts in the US, and this is again towards COP27, post-COP26. There were certain pledges that were made for South Africa to move away from fossil fuels. This is part of the larger conversation. But let's bring it closer to your beat, business. The manufacturing data, along with, I think, mining data, That data will tell us, I think, this week, just where we are or how the economy is performing, but you factor in the element about Eskom, which is load shedding just about every other day. It's a huge impact on businesses.
No, absolutely. And it's not just that it's load shedding every other day. It's 4 to 8 hours of load shedding at your most productive times every single day or every other day, which is extremely disruptive. I mean, businesses are losing hundreds of millions of rands in value and operating time as a result of not having access to power or consistent power. And so they're looking to those renewable resources to try and bolster or mitigate against the losses at Eskom, looking to solar, looking to hydro power. But all of that is very expensive. And at the end of the day, it does not solve the real problem that we have of load shedding, because it only satisfies their business and their operations. Yeah. Unfortunately, the challenges that Eskom faces affect the 60 million South Africans and not just the odd business here and there. And so Eskom really needs to get its power situation under control. We really need to find consistent power. Right now, we're operating at less than half of the available power in our economy. So half of the power access available to you means half of the productivity, or maybe even more than half of the productivity in our economy is lost. And that's no way to grow.
And Kopano, the team telling me, and that's why I have the phone in the hand here, that we are supposed to throw to a soundbite, and I suspect it has to do with just how the business community is being affected by the load shedding and perhaps how they are coping with it. I think it's someone from Gold Fields, the mining company. Let's just have a listen for a moment before we wrap up the conversation.
I think the President's absolutely right. One of the things that mining hasn't done up until recently is look after other stakeholders apart from shareholders. So the investment in communities that is stressed. I think mining companies are doing a lot more than they're giving credit for, but there is a lot more to be done. And mining communities are poor. Around the world, particularly in developing countries, mining communities have not seen all the benefits that mining can deliver to them. But yeah, there's a balance there as well. In South Africa in particular, municipal government has virtually collapsed. So mining companies have had to step in, but they can only do so much. There can only be so many roads, run so many schools, build so many schools, build so many hospitals, but eventually government has to come to the party. And unfortunately, in a lot of the rural mining communities in which we are based, municipal government is virtually absent. So it's a combination of things. Mining companies certainly can do more, but we also have to look at our partners, our other stakeholders who also have to play their part, particularly in this country.
Well, representative from Goldfields there. In a way, summing up what the conversation has been at the mining indaba taking place in Cape Town, because much of the blame, yes, it's on government side in making sure that these companies keep running, obviously power being the main issue here, but corporate social responsibilities as well, including taking care of their labor. The Minister of Mineral Resources has also been speaking. In fact, I think he addressed that gathering on its first day. You spoke about hydro, you spoke about nuclear. That's some of what he has been saying in order to mitigate this impact around the energy loss in the country.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I understand the intention of trying to get ahead of the power situation that we have right now and working towards renewable, because many of these large investors are just not willing to fund coal-fired projects in the way that we have coal-fired plants in South Africa to provide electricity. Yeah. And so needing to look at hydro options and nuclear as alternatives to try and attract investment in the country is essential. But at the same time, all of our power, majority of our power, 90% of the power that we generate is through coal-fired plants. And so we need to just fix those first, get the basics right of having access to power consistently for all 60 million South Africans, and then we can talk about how we invest in alternative energy solutions.
Kopano Gumbi, our business reporter, thank you very much for that comprehensive update, keeping us updated there.